point. He's got 25 million followers on Twitter. He communicates directly to the American people. And the media, I'm not part of the American media, but the media, when looking at American media, it seems they always take the bait from Donald Trump and become the story themselves and start asking themselves questions about the story that Donald Trump wants them to cover.
Well, I think what we do have is a president who deeply understands sort of the confrontational and corporatist incentives that underlie the American media. But I also don't think it's fair to characterize the entire media as liberal, when in fact we have something like Fox News that it has been clearly shown to not be liberal. So there is actually a balance in many of the media outlets right now. If you read Real Clear Politics, which is an aggregator, it shows you every single day the opinion from the left, the opinion from the right, one after another on every topic of the day. So it is not fair to sort of just describe the media in one fell swoop. That being said, I also think that it is a problem that we now have a world in which people live by their own sets of facts.
Alternative facts? Or...
I mean, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. It is amazing to me that partisan worldviews are actually the determinant of whether or not you believe something or not. In other words, your party lens, your glasses that you put on that say whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, tells you whether or not you listen to somebody from your team, and that includes somebody from your media team.
Anton, I mean, the world's media are also reporting all the time on Trump as well. What are they thinking from your mindset? I mean, you look at a lot of Eastern European, Russia, Europe.
In Russia, the coverage has been, for the most part, up to about 2 weeks ago, very positive, and now questions are being raised. I think there's a broader issue at stake here, which is the proliferation of sources of information. And this discovery we're going through right now, it's called postmodernism, I suppose, that an endless, uncontrollable amount of information does not clarify things. It presents so much chaos for the human mind that people end up searching for sources of information with which they agree. We think emotionally first, and then we follow the facts. And this is what the world has come to. I think this is a global phenomenon, by the way. I think it's also very interesting to see the rise of populist politicians across the board in the West. It's not just that the West...
Trump is indicative of, you think?
I think Trump is a symptom of a much broader and much deeper tectonic shift in global politics. And it takes several tracks. First of all, I think what we're witnessing is a general de-Westernization of global politics.
You've been reading about the Munich conference, haven't you?
I've been reading about...
I've
been following the Munich conferences, but I'm also an historian, so we tend to take the long view. Yeah. If you look at the at the history of the world since the Age of Discovery, the West has been in the driver's seat for almost 5 full centuries now, and everyone else has been playing along. Over the past 25 years, roughly, we see very powerful socioeconomic actors emerging in Asia, for example, that are now claiming their role in how the world works.
I'm glad you said that, because we haven't talked about China, and obviously we're a Chinese network. For the Chinese media and the Chinese government, when Trump, the candidate, was sort of China bashing on the campaign trail, everyone thought, well, this is what you say on the campaign trail, everyone's done it. And then when he got elected, there was this period where he looked like he might even abandon the one China policy. There was the phone call with the leader in Taiwan. And then, I'm just going to play you this. He came out and said this after his first phone call with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping.
I had a very, very good conversation, as most of you know, yesterday with the president of China. It was a very, very warm conversation. I think we are on the process of getting along very well.
Of course, Megan, that was welcomed by the Chinese people, obviously. But what the president did there was reaffirm what every other US president has done since 1979, the one China policy. But by hinting that he may change it, it looked like a climb down in some circles. Did he need to do that? Is this Trump's style? Is this something, you've been backing him since the primaries early on. Is this something global politics has to get used to?
Yeah, I think so, because we have a new leader in the White House. We have a man that is not politically, I would say, astute, right? He hasn't had any political experience prior to walking into the White House. And so he's playing the game much like a poker player, much like a CEO of the company. You don't lay all of your cards out on the table. You make your opponents kind of guess what you have and that you're holding close to your sleeve. And I think that this puts some of the leaders that have risen up during the vacuum of the...
But some people have been playing poker in this game a lot longer than Donald Trump.
Correct.
In terms of diplomacy, and is he finding that out?
And they lost.
Well, yeah, but is he going to? I mean, this is something that came out of the meetings in Europe with NATO. It's like everyone in Europe wants a close relationship with the United States, and they want to see that. And they saw Mike Pence, and they saw obviously General Mattis, and they didn't quite know who was in charge of the NSC. They said, look, it's all very good, reassuring, but we don't know what your leader's going to say tomorrow. We don't know that policy is what you're saying is going to be true. Megan, that's difficult for the global community, considering the US's leadership role has been around for so long. And is it a reflection, as you said, Anton, of a post-West? Is Trump actually caring less because the US won't lead in the same way it's done before?
Well, we definitely have more of a nationalist platform with Trump, meaning that we're bringing jobs back to the U.S. by repatriation and the upcoming tax plan that's going to invite more companies, and more companies every week say we're going to build more factories here, we're going to create more jobs here. And so this is part of the revitalization that Trump has given this economy, and then that the stock market actually highest after inauguration since 1945, and that was today, the biggest spike that they've seen since 1945. So there's a lot of business interest here, including from abroad, to reinvest in America because of the forthcoming tax policy, and that they're going to be business-friendly economic policies.
Alberto, trade. Obviously, Mexico's nervous about NAFTA. Even Justin Trudeau was nervous about NAFTA, even though he didn't show it in his appearance at the White House. This is something that we have yet to hear from properly on the White House in terms of policy. I know that many thinkers in China are worried about Peter Navarro and his new policy. So where do you see the hemisphere and elsewhere on trade, considering also that one of his first acts was to pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Yes, I don't know if we are in the post-truth or the post-West or under the both posts, actually. What I see is that the Trump factor can be also understood in the cultural and demographic transformation of the United States, and that includes the relationship with the South. One of the problems that I get when I get this excess of what, also called tweets, and this lack of context and explanations, one of my problems is that we see Mexico through the eyes of an stereotyper. We see the globalization through the eyes of somebody who is giving us just a tweet. We need to get deeper than that, and media are not doing their job. I think I remember when Donald Trump started, like the disruptor in chief that he is, calling names to Mexicans, also known as Hispanics or Latinos. And mainstream media got all appalled. Well, you know what? Mainstream media have been doing that all the time.
Right.
Meaning there are no Hispanic experts, no Muslim experts, no color in the everyday life of American media. So I don't think we should answer the way we are answering. I think we need to start a new conversation.
Well, we're never guilty of that here, because we always make sure that people from the regions that we speak about are on air. And I wish we could talk more, but I'm going to round out this show by asking you all to give me one success you see of this presidency so far and one failure, and why. Very quickly, Laura.
I actually think his appointment of McMaster
yes, we haven't even talked about the new...
who is now going to be in charge of the National Security Council. I think it was a very wise choice.
And your failure?
The failure, I think, was that executive order done wrong.
Sorry, got to move along.
I think the appointment of Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary. I think she can bring a massive amount of change to what needs to be changed. And I would agree with the rollout of the executive order.
For you?
Success, cautiously optimistic about the a renewed Moscow-Washington relationship, which will have enormous repercussions for many parts of the world. Failure, unfortunately, is the Flynn disaster, and no control over the administration yet.
Alberto, last word. Success and failure. Got about 10 seconds.
He is successful as a disruptor. He is a failure as a deporter-in-chief.
Thank you very much. What a great discussion. I wish we could go on further, but that is it for this edition of The Heat.